What's up guys, your driver Mike here, back with another video. Today we're talking about everything Uber, Lyft, and surge versus demand. So first let's understand what both are, okay? Both are features in your driver app that are going to show areas of increased demand. So if we look here, we'll see that Uber shows demand between a color scale of kind of an orange, yellow, all the way up to a deep red. So the more deep red or the more red on the map, that's an increased demand area. That's going to have a higher multiplier. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, surge for Uber is based on a multiplier fare. So if we're taking, I don't know, $1.50 a mile for the passenger, the multiplier is going to charge 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, whatever it may be. Okay, so that's going to be based on demand. So if you're sitting in an area, let's say you're sitting by the bars, close to 2 a.m. when the bars close, you may see areas of a surge or the orange and the red, which indicate that a lot of passengers need a ride. So you'll see the fares on the app start to show 1.2, 1.4, 0.6, 0.8, 2.0, and so on. It usually goes by 0.2 increments unless there's some exceptionally high demand where you may see surge spike upwards. Depending on what version of the app you have, what you have in your market, the newest update is called a honeycomb dynamic pricing model. Okay, honeycomb dynamic pricing model. Easier than it sounds. Quite literally, the demand areas, the specific areas on the map, are in the shape of a honeycomb, and within each segment of the honeycomb, you're going to have a multiplier. So we're talking multiple patches, multiple shapes within the same block. Okay, it's very, very precise, very particular. So you may see a 1.2, 1.4, 2.0, whatever it may be. Let's say it's a 2.0 at a certain bar. Okay, bar A. Well, if there's a lot of passengers that are coming out of bar A, we may see 2.0 right there. Okay, because it's the most popular place in town. It's got a ton of capacity, a ton of people that need rides. 2 a.m., 2.0, or whatever it may be. Hopefully higher. Okay, so let's move down a half block from bar A. We have bar B. Okay, still popular, still a nice bar, but not as many people. What you'll see is bar A kind of acts as the central point for demand for surge, which everything else is based off of. That 2.0 is going to be the highest area of demand, and you'll see it'll typically branch out from there. So bar B may have a 1.8 versus bar A is going to have that 2.0. So why is this important for you? Well, doing the research on your city, knowing the demand trends, knowing which spots are the hottest in your city, you can best position yourself to hopefully catch the highest peak of that surge rate. Okay, so you can take the highest multiplier, which is going to give you more dollars per hour because you're getting paid more. So that's where it really helps to A, B, C. Always be checking. Always be checking your driver app throughout the day or in the evening if you plan on driving in the evening, just to see the demand trends. Okay, let's say you're doing something else, you're hanging out, you're going out on Friday night. Okay, around 10 p.m., check the app. Okay, throughout the night, check the app, but make sure to check the app again starting at 1 a.m. and then check every 15 minutes or even more, ideally. Again, you're mapping out in your head what surge is going to be. Okay, you're going to say Friday nights around, this downtown location, wherever it may be. You're going to look 1 a.m., 105, 110, 115, 120. You're going to see the surge ebb and flow, go up and down, and you're going to find out which of those areas cause the peak surge demand. So when you do drive next Friday, whenever it may be, if you see continual patterns each weekend of this particular bar, restaurant, wherever, if you see trends in that area having the peak surge, then at 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever it is, you're going to be there. Okay, so remember, the Uber app positions passengers with the closest driver. So radius is very important, guys. Can't stress this enough. You ideally want to be the closest driver to the point of highest demand. Okay, let's revisit bar A. Where are you going to situate yourself? Where are you going to stage at? That's correct. You're going to stage really right in front of the front doors if you can. Okay, you're going to park legally, always legally. Park as close as you can to the establishment, to bar A. Because the passengers inside, they're going to pull out their phone. They're going to say request Uber X, and that pin, or the ping rather, is going to go to the closest driver. So do your research. ABC, always be checking. Find the hot spots, find when they surge the most, and position. So we want to strategically position ourselves in front of the area with highest demand because we've ABC'd, we've checked the app, we've studied our trends in the city, and we know that bar A is the central hub for the most surge. So let's talk about Lyft. Lyft has Prime Time. Prime Time, you can think of it as the same as Uber Surge. Prime Time is going to show pink squares on the driver app, and their color scale is basically going to go from a light pink to a dark pink. Okay, light pink is going to be the areas of some increased demand, and areas of a deep concentrated pink are areas of the highest demand. So let's talk about Lyft Prime Time and how it exactly works, because it is a little different than Uber Surge. Lyft Prime Time goes on a percent multiplier. Okay, again, the Lyft Prime Time is on a percent multiplier, not on a 1.2, 1.4 scale. Okay, so if you're in an area of Lyft Prime Time, it's going to show you the pink rectangle showing increased demand. Now, above that, it's going to show Prime Time 25%. Okay, what does that mean, right? 25% is the additional amount that a passenger is going to pay on a fare. So if they're paying let's just say one whole number, 100%, that's their standard fare, at 25%. So think of that as a 1.25 surge, okay? Again, the percent that you're going to see in a Lyft Prime Time zone is the additional percent of the fare that the passenger is going to pay. So let's think of even more higher demand in a Lyft Prime Time area. If you see a darker pink rectangle, you will see, let's say, above that in the header of the app, you'll see Prime Time 100%. All right. So again, let's think about this again. 100% in addition to the fare that the passenger is going to pay. That's a double, of course. That is a 2x fare equivalent. So just one more example. If there is a 350% prime time, what would that be? Yes, that is a 4.5x Uber equivalent, okay? Because again, they're going to pay their standard 100%, their standard fare, plus 3.5 times that. That equals your 4.5 equivalent, okay? They're paying their fare, okay? So let's say $10, and 3.5 times that, they're going to pay an additional $35, so that is $45 total. Should have been $10, now it's $45. There's our 4.5x. Now, if you're thinking that the Lyft Prime Time is a little complicated to calculate, you're right. In my opinion, the Lyft Prime Time is somewhat confusing for both passengers and drivers, especially the bar crew, to calculate how much of a premium they're really paying for the ride. You're going to see that you're in a 350% prime time, but someone may not realize that that's actually a 4.5x Uber equivalent. So how to take advantage of Lyft Prime Time. Now, forewarning guys, big tip, listen to this. The Lyft Prime Time is not stated when you get the ride request. Now, if you're currently driving, you know this, of course, but new drivers, listen up. When you get the request for a Lyft ride, you will not know the prime time multiplier or percent amount. Okay, Lyft does not show you that prime time rates when getting the ride request. Okay, so I'm on my driver app and I'm online. I'm in a prime time zone. I get a request. Okay, it says Joe needs a ride, 1 block ahead of me. Okay, well, it won't say anything else. It'll give you the standard Lyft information, nothing about the prime time. And if you're thinking that's frustrating, it is. Okay, one downside to driving Lyft is you don't know the prime time when getting the request. You know it when the ride is completed. Okay, so the only strategic thing you can do is to, again, ABC, always be checking the Lyft app this time, and see if you're sitting in an area of prime time. Are you positioned within the pink rectangle, indicating that rides within that rectangle are going to be prime time? Now, one big thing about prime time, guys, is I have heard that you can be sitting in the Lyft prime time zone and get a request within the prime time zone and not get prime time rates. Okay, let me repeat that. You can be sitting in the primetime zone. It's showing the pink rectangle on the app. Your car is in the app. You get a request, not even over here a block away or anything like that. You're in the primetime zone. And when you end the ride, because again, you don't know until you end the ride. When you end the ride, there's no prime time added. Probably the most frustrating thing as a driver to have that happen to you. It's happened to me. Okay, so here's my disclaimer about driving prime time on Lyft. All right, that you have to be aware that you may not get prime time rates. So because of this, if Uber's surging a comparable amount, because you should have both apps open, you can compare demand rates. If Uber's surging, you may want to take that guaranteed surge rate because you can see that surge rate coming in on the request. Okay, you can't see that with Lyft. Now, I've also heard that Lyft has told drivers that prime time is really just an indication of a general demand in the area. Okay, now what does that mean? That if you're in the prime time zone, if you're in the rectangle, all that means is that in the area, there's areas of high demand. Okay, that's pretty confusing. So just because you're in the rectangle of prime time, Lyft is saying, well, there's prime time, but it's in the general area. That's what I've heard. That's kind of what I've experienced sometimes with Lyft. It's kind of a crapshoot, honestly. With Lyft Prime Time, you have to be very careful. Make sure that you're in an area of very big demand, that you know that it's a big sporting event, a huge concert, something where that ride better have prime time. You're in such a high demand area, there's no reason that any ride in that general vicinity would not have prime time. Okay, so in my opinion, take the guaranteed Uber surge rate if it's a good surge rate, or you can take the Lyft if it is a exceptionally high demand area where that should have prime time. So we've talked about what surge is on Uber. We've talked about what prime time is on Lyft. We've talked about how to best strategize to ABC, to always be checking your app, study demand trends, strategically and legally position yourself, and then compare the two, the Uber surge and the Lyft prime time. So let's talk about, are there any negatives to getting a great multiplier and getting a great dollar amount on your fare? Well, there are a few negatives, and the severity of them you can judge for yourself, but one is you may get lower ratings just taking surge or primetime fares. And the reason, or the theory I should say behind this, is that passengers are paying sometimes quite a bit more, a 3x multiplier, let's say, and they're not happy about it. Okay, nothing that you can do. You're just driving, you're just doing the most dollars per hour that you can, you're just strategizing, but sometimes they may rate you down for this. Okay, now in general, and we'll talk about this more in another video, but your ratings should be okay as long as you are professional, you are good with navigation and you know your roads, and you have good customer service. You're pleasant, you're nice, and you carry conversation if they would like to carry conversation. Okay, so they may rate you down if you're taking just surge prime time, but in my opinion, you should be okay if you follow those pillars of driving. Another negative to surge and prime time is it may be kind of addictive, guys. All right, so it's kind of like going to the casino and expecting to hit big every single time. Now, if you're just hunting for surge and prime time fares, it can be done. That's a good strategy, but you are bound to be disappointed when there is no surge, there's no prime time, or it's lower than you expected. Okay, so you may, depending on how far away you are, you're going to have to drive and stage or sit in your hotspot and wait for high demand. But what if there's no demand? Okay, you're going to have wasted miles, and if you are driving from farther away, you'd be wasting a lot of miles. Okay, and there's been situations where in my market, surge will kick in a certain area, maybe hit 2.0, 2.5 even. And if you think it's going to go higher, and this is part of the strategy, this is part of the game into demand trends, is you may think it's going to go higher and then it drops. All right, well, you'll say, well, it should go back up again because I know this bar, people are going to hang around and it should bounce back up. But what if it doesn't? All right, if it keeps dropping and it flatlines, and that could take a process of 30 minutes to go from peak to zero, you just wasted 30 minutes. Now you're out of the highest demand time window, and now you're probably going to have to take standard fares. All right, guys, one last subject that we'll talk about, and that's how to best capitalize on the highest prime time and highest surge. And you're going to want to listen to this section, guys. So in order to best capitalize on surge or prime time, you have to do the research and you have to watch the trends on the app. Okay, both before and during the drive time. So if you are driving the bar rush, 2 a.m. close, at least here in Pittsburgh, it's 2 a.m. close. So you may start heading out at 1 a.m. Okay, because you know, of course, the demand is going to climb at 2 a.m. So you're doing your ABCs, you're always checking your app. Now, if you're driving, guys, I would hope that you would already have the Uber or Lyft app up. Okay, we don't want you toggling in between both, but keep one or the other open so you can track the demand trends. You're going to position in front of your hotspot area, and at that point, when you legally park, you can check and bounce between both apps. But so your ABC, you're checking your apps, all right, and then the window for high demand starts. Let's say 1:15 a.m., 1:30 a.m. Here's where your research really makes you the most on your rides. All right, you've done your ABC, you've checked your apps for weeks, every single weekend. Okay, so you know when demand peaks. Is it 1:45 a.m.? Is it 2 a.m. on the dot? Is it 2:15? And that's it, right? No, it may be 2:30, it may be 2:45, or even 3 a.m. You know, if people are leaving the bars, is it a college town? Are they going to hang around and get some food and then head home? Are there going to be multiple waves of demand? Is there going to be the crowd that leaves early, which is going to peak some demand, the crowd that leaves because they're kicked out at 2 and the bar is closing, the crowd that leaves after they get their pizza? So you have to do this research and see which one of those is applicable in your market. If you're seeing those trends, if that's an applicable demand trend for your market, I don't know. You need to do the research because it depends on age demographic. It depends on what's in the area. It depends if there's other establishments that people will go to after hours. All these things you need to do the research on so you know, is 2 a.m. the best time to go online? All right, so you don't always want to sit there and be online. If you're trying to capitalize on the highest demand, you're going to watch your app, you're going to watch the trends that you've studied, and from your experience, from your research, you're going to say, well, hey, I know it peaks at this time. And then when the demand trend is going up, and when you think it's hit its peak, that's when you go online. Okay, and if you time it right, you'll get a ride request at an exceptionally high demand level. Okay, and you finish the ride, and you check back in the same area and it's gone, or demand is gone, surge is gone, or it's drastically decreased. Now, if it's still hot, if it's the same surge level or higher, get back there if it's feasible, okay? Again, this is all about research, guys. If you drive someone at 2 a.m., you drive them 20 minutes away, is it worth it to even come back if it's still red hot in that bar area? Okay, so lots of questions to think about. A, the mileage on the way back, all right, because you're going to be having no passenger. You're going to be basically driving what's called dead miles without a passenger that you're spending money on. So is it worth it to drive back not even 20 minutes? Let's say 10 to 15 minutes, okay? 15 minutes is a good in-between point. 10 minutes, you may be able to make it back, demand or not, and not waste that much money expense-wise. But let's say 15. That's when it really becomes a strategic move. Should I go back if it's red hot still, all right? I don't know, let's say it's 3x, right? If it's still red hot there, based on your knowledge, is it worth it to go back? Or in 10 minutes, is that demand trend going to be gone by the time you get there? Plus all the drivers that are already doing pickups, plus the passengers that are leaving that area. Is it not worth it to drive even 15 minutes back to that area, okay, versus going home, especially if it's in the opposite direction, guys, all right? So all of this stuff, guys, ABC, you need to always be checking. You need to ideally write it down or just memorize demand trends if you can, so you know in those situations, A, when you go online, you're going online at the most optimal time. B, when you take a hopefully optimal fare, is it worth it to come back? How far away are you? How many miles away are you, okay? Even expenses, how much does it cost to operate your vehicle, right? Everything. Now, maybe you don't have to go that deep into it, but from a business standpoint, is it worth it for you to go back? All right, guys, your driver Mike here. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know if this helped you out and help some other drivers out. Put some comments about how to best optimize surge or prime time driving. All right, guys, and that is it for today. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.